Everybody, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, prof. First, I want to say something about how much I was impressed yesterday with the ceremony held for the victims of 9/11, because all we are speaking, terrorism, non-state organizations, all of that has finally a face. It's the face of the victims. And you know that very often in our debates among member states, in the international research community, we discuss about how to define the violent extremism, how to define terrorism, how to define now of countering violent extremism. But still, what counts is the impact of terrorism and violent extremism. And this impact is primarily the victims, the families which suffer of this phenomenon. And I want always here, as I do it all the time, pay tribute to the victims and the families of these horrible acts. Yes, we have known terrorism, especially in Israel, but also in many countries of the world, for many years, decades. But as the panelists of the last panel spoke about, the nature of terrorism has changed dramatically. Also, the magnitude of terrorism has changed. And terrorist organizations or non-state actor organization or violent actor, a violent non-state organization, whatever you want, have developed more sophisticated strategies and tactics, including, as we just heard, the seize of vast territories. I would like to qualify what they do as a mark of flexibility and fluidity. They adapt themselves so quickly. And in contrast, we are rigid in terms, I speak about what we do at member states level. We have, and especially the big states and the bigger states, as the colleague from the Washington University said, or the George Washington University said. And this is really the problem that we have to face now. The terrorist organizations are always 1, 2, 10 steps ahead of us. We are behind. And this is really and we are behind, especially, you know, in the legal field. As my presenter said, I am a judge. Gave you a wonderful CV about my career, you know, recalling that I am an old man anyway. But what I want to say is that in the legal field we are probably forced to be rigid, but too much. And this is to do. Let's have a dream and share among ourselves a secret that I encourage you to share with everybody. Means that we have to have the same fluidity and flexibility. At the moment, it's a dream, but we have to do it. We have to do it in order to avoid to have, for many, many years, still so many victims again of terrorist organizations. Well, we had this example of Daesh controlling a broad region encompassing parts of Syria, Iraq, and having resources that never organizations had before, especially the exploitation of old fields, the systematic looting of cultural artifacts, kidnapping for ransom, etc. I will not come back to that. And in other regions, Boko Haram relies so much on hostage taking, on the abduction of women and reducing women in slavery, etc. But also not forgetting trafficking in arms and drugs. So, the rapidly evolving and volatile nature of terrorist threat has of course being underlined in numerous Security Council resolutions. But what is the advantage of this Security Council resolution? What is the comparative advantage of the UN on all of that? First of all, don't forget that these resolutions are mainly, for the great majority of them, taken under the Chapter 7 of the Charter of the United Nations, which means that they are mandatory for member states. Oh, well, okay, fine. I mean, the United Nations say. Still, setting the norms can set the parameters for future actions. And since we have to be so flexible, let me be a little bit provocative. Avoid, on the basis of the principle of reciprocity, to look into all the elements of, for example, the principle of dual criminality, to go into all these elements which really are reducing our speed against them. But what we have to do also, and this is the role of my organization, the Counter-Terrorism Executive Directorate, which is attached to the Security Council, is to provide member states with the right information to just, go as quickly as possible to the target, to the objective that we have defined. Means defeating these organizations. And for that, I have a proposal for you. I have a proposal for you because we have, of course, so many challenges together. First of all, for the legal research, the criminalization of the foreign terrorist fighters phenomenon. Here it is criminalized that way. There it is criminalized the other. Second, to really prevent the foreign terrorist fighters to travel, not done. We have produced a report a few weeks ago saying, for example, that the advanced passenger is used only by 20 countries in the world. Could you imagine that? And we are still discussing also all the profiles of the terrorists to be shared by the of the world. But I want just to say that for API in our jargon, Advanced Passenger Information, only 25 states are equipped with the relevant mechanisms. API is very simple. What is it? Sharing what is on the passports. Sharing the information about the identity. Come on, we are not even able to do that right now. But the Security Council resolution can provide us the legal ground to do it. And, of course, the same for the control of the border, the comprehensive approach that we need to counter terrorism, because we know the principles on the basis of which we have to work. Is not a judge who will do that rule of law and human rights count a lot in terms of the principles on the basis of which all the United Nations member states have to work from. That's the Charter of the United Nations, which imposes that. It's not West, it's not South, it's not, no, it's in the Charter. And then even I think that we have to understand much more, and I was glad that you had a session on this issue, much more what to do on countering the violent extremism. But here also, we have a set of recommendations, fine, but we have also a resolution of the Security Council which can pave the way for that, and which is the resolution 1624. So I look forward to discussing approaches to counter the violent extremism also with you and with the research community. What I want really to do with you, I don't come just here to deliver an address or keynote address or whatever speech. I am just coming because I need you and I need to work with you. That's the reason why I am here. And I would like to promote the idea that the UN, first member states, the UN, the research community, plus the private sector, should finally cooperate better, faster, with more fluidity and more flexibility. If we are to tackle this rapidly evolving and fluid threat, then we need to think about ourselves and what to do. So we need to improve first our institutional thinking, because we work in silos. Here you have the research community. Fine. Where do we go with the research? So many things have been said here. So many good information has been given to the audience. But the audience has to transmit these elements to the body of guiding member states in their efforts. I am not sure that many member states, of course I don't speak about Israel or the United States or even my country or other countries in the world, but I am not sure that we are sharing all of that. How many conferences that we had? How many predictions that we had? And then, where do we go with that? I would like to say to make a cooperation with technical assistance. You know that in the UN, in many countries in the world, we speak about technical assistance, the European Union, with US aid, etc. So much has been given in terms of technical assistance. And then we have to look at the impact and how to do that much more efficient. It's time not to think about UN, member states on one side, research institution on the other. Instead, I would like to propose to think of ourselves as one community that shares the same values of life, rule of law, human rights. And we have to find mechanisms to propose to policymakers this work that you are doing, to transpose it, the work of the research community. And in this regard, we have created a network, a global network of research institutions in order to propose to the Counter-Terrorism Committee of the Security Council, all the elements, even the bad time to time, by the way, also. Not always, what is proposed by the researcher is good or it's the same. Member states are not very often in this way, not always good to work on these issues. So we have to really adapt ourselves. And we have to exchange information on terrorist trends, threats, methodologies, and plans. And in order to have a more proactive of our work, we need to actively consider what we can benefit from the research, but what also probably on the practical issues the research can also benefit from, our experience on the ground. I'm speaking about the experience on the ground. We are a very specific organization, the UN, which is in charge of assessing the counter-terrorist capacities of the country. So you analyze the threat, the methods to counter them, but we assess the counter-terrorist capacity. So I think that it is in this combination of work that we can find perhaps some solutions, again, on the fil rouge of the hotline of the combination of work in terms of flexibility and fluidity. So in response to all of that, threats that we have in front of us, let's work together. And for that, I would like to thank more specifically Professor Ganor and his to have invited me to address this audience. And let me invite you, because I look forward for that, let me invite you to work together to reduce the number of victims of terrorism in the world. Thank you.
Merci. We need more judges like you, and if we had some, we could get further on this. Well, you all look like you need a break. So what I suggest is that we take a break for about 20 minutes, and then you'll be called back here for the continuation of the great time we're all having together. So enjoy the refreshments.